Yo, what's good, guys? We've got a fragrance video coming with you today. It's going to be a good one. Brand new scent out of the Middle East. I put world exclusive on the video because I think I'm the first long form review that I've seen, probably the first person on YouTube that's going to talk about this. I'm not the first person in English to talk about this, but from all my sort of research into this and stuff, I've only seen people primarily on TikTok in kind of Arabic. There's a few people on Instagram, but we're just talking short little 50-second videos. No one's really done a deep dive on this yet. This is brand new. This is Jean-Christophe. I expect this is going to get a lot of attention, a lot of excitement, this scent. Primarily because it's like another one of his scents, which we all know about. It's Aventus. It's an Aventus type thing. So without further ado, the scent today is called Strike Black by the house of Assaf. Not a house that I really know a huge amount about. Just that they generally do inspired buys and dupes. They have these ludicrously large bottles. They often come in like a 200ml size. Don't really know who they work with perfumer wise, but obviously Jean-Christophe was on this project. He did this scent for them. It's the first scent he's done for them. I'm all over it, as you'd expect, considering it's going to be an Aventus type thing. So yeah, let's get into it. So if you guys are wondering how I always find out about his stuff to start with, because I'm always super early, super quick in it. This isn't rocket science, guys. Set up a Google alert for hits on certain, keywords, his name. You'll find, whenever something comes up on Fragrantica, I always get an alert, if his name is on it. And again, Fragrantica popped up with this pretty quickly when it was launched. I found it pretty much straight away within a couple of days of it, popping up there. It has Jean-Christophe Hérault as the perfumer, which is okay, interesting, very interesting. But it didn't actually have his proper, if you go on Fragrantica, it didn't have his proper name on it. It had some other weird sort of account that wasn't actually him. So at the moment, it's not actually in his list of creations on Fragrantica, but nonetheless, it is his creation. I found out about it from Fragrantica, Googled it, found it on their official site, found a bit saying about, the blurb for the scent, his picture, and I still wasn't quite convinced. I was like, hang on a second, surely he's not doing, an Aventus dupe for a fairly kind of budget, good value, Middle Eastern house. This seems maybe too good to be true. I found all the marketing for it on TikTok. They seem to be, the Middle Eastern brands seem to be heavy on TikTok. So after more Googling, I found it on TikTok. I found an official promo for it, which I actually reposted on the channel. I still wasn't quite believing it. I was like, maybe this is just an AI of him and somehow, but anyway, I obviously went straight to him and said, is this your creation? Just to really be 100,000% sure that it was, his, he did it, basically. He made this. And he was like, yes, it's his. And I kind of thought it was after seeing the promo video, because he's on it and he's, it does seem like it's him. But it just seemed like something that was almost too good to be true, or it just come out of nowhere, basically. So we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to give you the deep dive, the proper deep dive, no 50-second kind of nonsense. We're going to properly deep dive into this. I did the research before buying it. It was a blind buy anyway, we were going to buy this immediately. But I was on the TikTok. I went to quite some length to find out what I could before obtaining it. I was on the TikTok. All the videos about it were on TikTok for the first sort of few days when it was launched. All these, it's all in Arabic, so I couldn't understand a thing. But I was sitting there translating all the comments from Arabic to English and, going through it, seeing if I could glean anything about the scent. And really all we knew about this prior to, we knew it was going to be something in the style of Absolute Aventus because of the notes primarily. And everyone talking about it was like, yeah, this is inspired by Absolute Aventus. Blah, blah, blah. It was going to be something like Absolute Aventus on paper. A few people said it had some differences to Absolute Aventus. The more different, the better, really, because that scent already exists. We didn't necessarily want something that was kind of a straight copy of that. And Jean-Christophe made it, so how is it going to be a copy of that anyway? It all gets a little bit kind of convoluted, because obviously he created Aventus. Absolute Aventus is a sort of flanker to Aventus. So Creed own the formula to Aventus, and they've gone in and, you know, they created Aventus Cologne from that. Apparently Alberto Marias did Aventus Cologne, so I'm not a big fan of Aventus Cologne, just to sort of put it out there. I don't think it's a particularly like good version of, you know, a good spin-off of Aventus. I feel like the changes it makes aren't really very good changes. I know it performs well and it has a lot of fans. I'm not a fan of it. As like a hardcore Aventus fanboy, or I was back in the day, I didn't really feel Aventus Cologne really did what I would want in an Aventus Cologne. In fact, Mystery for Him, which we spoke about a couple of years ago, that to me is more what you would expect from an Aventus Cologne. It's a bit lighter and brighter. It does more like pineapple, you know, at the top. That is really what I would expect from an Aventus Cologne flanker, more than what Creed put together. But most importantly, Jean-Christophe didn't make Aventus Cologne. This is very important. There's a lot of misinformation I find online. This is one of the first things as well when I first started to contact him. You know, one of the first things I asked was about Aventus Cologne, and then Absolute later on, you know, did you have a hand in these? Is this your... and he said this in other interviews as well. Basically, he only created the original Aventus in 2010 for Creed. So Creed owned the formula to it. They, you know, can do what they want, with sort of changing it and doing flankers and, you know, modifying it and stuff. But he created Aventus in 2010. And then everything that came after that, all the reformulations, all the tinkering, that's all in-house by Creed, basically. So he created Aventus in 2010. He created Mystery for Him in 2024, which I consider to be the first official flank of Aventus, because he created it. You know, if you're a real, you know, sort of... if you're really pedantic about the perfumers, which I often, you know, I tend to follow... You guys know I follow the perfumers. I follow... you know, Jean-Christophe primarily, but I do follow some other perfumers around with, you know, what they're doing. So he created Mystery for Him, which is really the first true flanker to Aventus. And now he's created Assaf Strike Black. Here it is, guys. Assaf Strike Black. This is what I would consider to now be the second official flanker to Aventus. And it's obviously, it's for a Middle Eastern house. It's very reasonably priced. The notes on paper look like it's going to be like Absolute Aventus, but it all gets a bit, like I said, because he created Aventus. Creed then respan it into Absolute Aventus as one of the two flankers they've done for it. And now he's come along, and it seems like this is his own sort of reinterpretation of Absolute Aventus. But I'm a little bit like, you know, I feel like you're going to see, but I don't necessarily think this is a dupe of Absolute Aventus. I feel like this is more of just another interpretation of Aventus, basically. It's got more to do with Aventus, I feel, than explicitly copying Absolute Aventus. And, you know, that could be a good thing, potentially, because like we found with Mystery for Him was a really good sort of brighter, fresher, almost a fresher take on Aventus. So if you didn't like the sort of the smokier notes, the woodier notes, Mystery for Him just gave you a really nice, like, clean pineapple. And a lot of people loved it. You know, the value was there, the quality was there, and how it smelled. You know, Jean-Christophe, I think, proved with Mystery for Him that he is, you know, he is the Aventus king. It's not like he's like, you know, it's not like he's like, you know, proving he's the best at that DNA. That's his DNA. That's his thing. So it's not surprising. It wasn't surprising to me that Mystery for Him was the closest thing to actual Aventus, you know, that I'd smell outside of Aventus. Because the clones all seem to get something a little bit wrong. They don't seem to fully like understand the balance of the fruity notes and how you achieve a certain sort of effect with the pineapple, and they all seem to miss the mark to some extent. Whereas Mystery for Him, off the top, it's unmistakably Aventus. It's fruity, it's not harsh, you know, it gives you that sort of juicy blast of pineapple that's very sort of realistic but addictive. Somehow Mystery for Him has different notes as well to Aventus. It has like juniper berry, it has lemon, it has the lemon note, but it still manages to smell basically just like Aventus at the top. You know, the pineapple, the juiciness. It doesn't have the apple, but it manages to have that sort of like tangy, juicy pineapple off the top, and it's absolutely delicious. The only place where Mystery for Him truly differs And Jean-Christophe did explain this. It's meant to be sort of bringing in part of the Baccarat Rouge DNA and blending it with Aventus is in the base, basically. It does have a little bit of woodiness, but Mystery for him has this sort of caramelized sort of thing, sweetness, which is very much from Baccarat Rouge. It's sort of like a caramel sweetness that's in the deep dry down. Now, it's not excessive, it's not overdone, but it does mean that it leans a little bit sweeter the further and further you get into the scent. It actually makes it very unisex as well. I don't have a problem with the excess, that type of sweetness in Mystery for him, but it does mean that I don't necessarily find it to be better than Aventus as such. It's just that it's a different, the proportions are different and it's a little bit sweeter in some regards. I love the pineapple in there, and it's for me, when I reviewed it, I said it's something new, it's something fresh, quite literally. We've been smelling Aventus many years, so to just have something new that's in that sort of style with that DNA was really like a breath of fresh air for me, to be honest. And I'm someone who smelt their fair share of Aventus, so we're going to get into this scent today. You're going to hear from someone who's actually smelt a fair bit of Aventus. Now, I'm not saying I'm the world's biggest Aventus expert by any stretch, but I've smelt quite a bit of Aventus. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Aventus. Now, guys, if you look at all the reviews of this thing so far, it's by a bunch of people on TikTok and Instagram, these sort of people that do the 50-second. They've got shelves of perfumes and clones behind them and stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, that's fine. That's their thing. They're trying to build themselves up to be influencers and monetize, and it's very clear they're trying to be, that they're following that mold of reviewer. I'm not trying to be that. I'm not trying to be a personality. I'm not trying to be, a perfume influencer. I'm just an enthusiast who likes to talk about it and share my sort of insights on it where I can. And I have quite a bit of experience smelling Aventus. I smelled pretty much all the Aventus out there from 2010 to 2020. Most of it, I know what they smell like from year to year. No, pretty much, for a time I was, involved in, writing about it online and famously on Base Notes. We had the batch threads and and I was always a part of that. From somewhere around 2015 to 2018, I was heavily in the batch thread. We were reviewing the different batches and getting into all of that. Great fun, great times. And the batch would come out and the newest batch and people, the flacons and the decants, and it was a great time to be enjoying and appreciating Aventus. And then beyond that, finding the batches that we all sort of and it wasn't that everyone liked the same batches. I knew what batches I loved, but it was very very interesting to see all the different sort of criticism of the different batches and which batches people liked. And I knew which batches I sure as hell knew which batches I was a fan of. I was very big on the batches that had a big appley sort of smell, a nice tangy apple to accompany the pineapple. Those are the ones that I felt really worked the best for me. And then we had the vintage batches, which were their own thing, which kind of, they were a bit rarer as time went on. They got a bit rarer. The bottles got spoiled to varying degrees. Basically, I've said this before on another video, but basically all the old Aventuses now are kind of pretty much stale. They don't really smell very fresh. They don't really smell very good. If you're really lucky, you can get an unsprayed one or one that's been kept in pristine, and you might get one that that's still relatively good for a little while. But the price that the resale market, the hype around Aventus, it never really died down. There's still a good amount of people that is batch collecting as a craze and stuff, and the price that's kept the market, the pricing of the older bottles. So what I'm saying is most normal people that might want to smell some old Aventus, or just check out what Aventus used to be like, they won't necessarily be able to afford it now, or want to pay. You might be able to do a little sample and just for smelling, but realistically the older bottles, we can kind of wave goodbye to them. They're too expensive in the resale market. People are hoarding them, so there's quite a lot out there that people are just hoarding and not reselling. I don't know what they're waiting for, but they're not going to be good forever, is what I'm saying. It's all a bit of a funny sort of thing, really. Don't get me wrong, I love Aventus and I appreciate why people would kind of love it and stuff, but sort of the craze around it and stuff, I felt for me I had my sort of fill of that for several years, and I kind of moved on to other perfumes, other fragrances. I wore Aventus heavily as well. It wasn't just like I was, just collecting it. I was heavily wearing it. It was like my daily scent, and we were loving it. But after a while, we had some significant reforms with the Lyral sort of thing, and I just kind of lost interest at that point. I just thought I got enough of the old, the older Aventus, that when I do want to wear Aventus, I can go to that. I don't really need to, check out the new stuff. I've got enough of the stuff I really liked, basically. So that's where we were with Aventus. Just so you know, I know what I'm talking about to some extent with Aventus. The other guys that reviewed this, like I said, they probably don't know their Aventus very well. The fact that they're just automatically comparing this to clones and stuff, it tells me they're not really tuned in to Aventus, because this is going to be, it's Jean-Christophe made it. We want to know kind of where it sits in relation to Aventus, more than we want to know where it is in relation to another clone of Absolute Aventus, because this might not even smell all that much like Absolute Aventus. Little clue what I'm going to say about it. So we're going to get into it. What I'll do, I'll read you the blurb and the notes, and then we're not going to unbox, because I've already unboxed, and I've actually been wearing it today. I am wearing it today. It's all over me. And I'll tell you what I think, and hopefully you can get some nice insights from this. The price is such that it's just like, I'm not going to have to say much good, am I? It's for people to want to, if you're watching this and you're on the fence, guys, the price of this, it's and if you like Aventus, it's, and we know Mystery for him was really, really kind of just a no-brainer at that price. This ain't going to have to be all that great in my mind relative to, and can Jean-Christophe make a bad scent in the Aventus style? I doubt it, to be honest, if he's doing it. So anyway, so Strike Black, I've got the blurb from Assaf's website. Strike Black was designed to embody a new concept for summer fragrance, a scent that draws its inspiration from the Saudi desert, translating it into a world-class olfactory experience. The concept originated from Petroline's journey. Okay, so there's like a line that carries the sort of, the oil and stuff, the desert. That's kind of the inspiration for it, supposedly. It's kind of like a summer fragrance born out of the desert. The result was a fragrance that combines freshness and depth, giving its wearer a presence befitting the Gulf summer and a personality that leaves its mark from the first moment. Designer, Jean-Christophe Hérault. Strike Black bears the signature of perfumer Jean-Christophe Hérault, one of the most prominent names in the global perfume industry, and the contributor to the development of a number of the most famous contemporary perfumes, including Creed Aventus. yeah, they mention, this is one of the times where mentioning Creed Aventus is very sort of significant. His selection came after a competition among a select group of top perfumers to lead the development of a formula that reflects Assaf's vision for a summer fragrance born from the Saudi environment and formulated according to the highest international perfume industry standards. Now, in the little blurb, and you can, if you go on my channel, go on the shorts, I reposted the official promo that they posted on TikTok there, as I couldn't find a YouTube mirror, so I just put it on my channel. You'll see Jean-Christophe's on there, and he says he was approached by them to create a summer perfume, basically, a distinctive summer perfume. That's kind of what we know. What they don't say, and what I'm going to sort of throw out there, they clearly came to him and said, "The guy, Jean-Christophe, we want something that's like Aventus. We want our own version of Aventus, basically. This is not rocket science, guys. Like when you smell this, when you see the notes, this is an Aventus inspiration. Let's say inspiration. But Jean-Christophe, he's not inspired by his own work in the first place. So it's basically, I consider this to be a flanker of Aventus, basically. An official flank of Aventus that's not in a Creed bottle. That's how I think about this. Just like Mystery for him, it's kind of like an Aventus cologne. This is going to be, again, it's going to be its own thing in the style of Aventus. How close are we going to get to Aventus? We're going to find out about that. So from the vast expanse of the Petroline, the desert, Assaf drew inspiration. So this thing about the desert and the thing, it's like, I get that. It's got some kind of spices and stuff, and, but really, guys, it's just, they wanted something like Aventus. They wanted their own. Aventus. So I'll give you the notes. Okay, so the pyramid. Bergamot, grapefruit, blackcurrant. So we don't have pineapple as the top note, but we do have blackcurrant, which is, you know, it's part of our OG Aventus. We didn't find blackcurrant in mystery for him, interestingly. We just got more of the pineapple, although it was lemon, quote unquote, but it was pineapple. So a bright opening burst with citrus vitality, enhanced by blackcurrant to give the fragrance a vibrant start full of freshness and energy. So we're going to get big, you know, nice burst of citrus. The heart, pineapple. So we got pineapples in the middle note, so we should get the pineapple-iness more in the core of this fragrance. Cinnamon, citron, and cardamom. Okay, so a balanced aromatic heart combining the vibrancy of fruit and the warmth of spices to reveal a captivating personality that evolves over time. Now, this is where we find our sort of absolute Aventus kind of, you know, similarity, because absolute Aventus, I believe, does have the cinnamon and the cardamom, and it might even have a citron note as well. But basically, the absolute Aventus, what absolute Aventus is, it's kind of like Aventus with the it has the pineapple toned down a bit. It has the black currant, very kind of prominent, and it has a kind of quite a big burst of spice into like a resiny sort of woody dry down. But the spices come out. You know, the spices weren't in Aventus. Basically, this is what absolute Aventus brought to the table with it. You know, with the Aventus sort of DNA, it added in this spiciness, this kind of warm spiciness with the cinnamon. I actually like Absolute Aventus. I think it's very good. I don't own a bottle because I just thought, you know, it was quite expensive and it just wasn't one that, you know, shouted to me to buy it. And I'm a purist and I know Jean-Christophe didn't make it. So again, it was just like, I never got Absolute Aventus, but I did try it out and I just thought, yes, this is a much better like spin on Aventus than I found Aventus Cologne to be. Aventus Cologne, really, like I said before, it didn't do anything for me. It felt like an inferior sort of spin on Aventus. It was more designer leaning. It didn't have as much pineapple. I just thought, why wouldn't you just wear Aventus over this at the end of the day? But Absolute Aventus, I could see Absolute Aventus being, you know, that sort of nice warm spiciness that got compared a bit to, I think, Sauvage Elixir. It had that sort of resiny spiciness where you could think that that would be better, maybe, you know, cooler weather, evening time. You know, especially considering how Aventus got fresher and fresher and fresher. You now had a bit of a darker, richer take on Aventus that you could pick up. Really good smell. I did enjoy it. I thought it was good. I just never purchased the bottle. And then the base here, pink pepper, patchouli, vetiver. So pink pepper is also in Absolute Aventus, I believe. It's also in the cologne, but let's just forget about the cologne. We don't really like the cologne. Patchouli, so the woodiness, and vetiver. Now vetiver is also, I believe, a base note in Absolute Aventus. So on paper, we have a set of notes which make it look like it's very much going to be in the style of Absolute Aventus, or maybe, you know, there's been some sort of cross-pollination from what Absolute Aventus is into this new reimagining of Aventus, or what we presume is going to be smelling like Aventus. So an elegant woody base rests on vetiver and patchouli, accompanied by pink pepper to give the fragrance depth, stability, and a lasting masculine signature. We don't have vanilla. We don't have, you know, the sweet notes potentially. It looks like this is going to be really nice. The question mark is how close to, you know, Absolute Aventus is going to be. Is it going to be close to Absolute Aventus? Is it going to be high quality? Like, you know, Jean-Christophe, IFF, you know, the juice and the oil. We know it's going to be great, really. Like, this is why it's such an easy blind buy for me, because I know he's behind it. So without further ado, I'm going to pull this bad boy out. You get it in this really huge box. Guys, this is a big box. This, you can see, this is not your average fragrance like box. This is big, it's heavy. There's a big bottle in here. You can feel there's a big bottle in here. Now, I got this from Saudi Arabia. I actually ordered it direct from Saudi Arabia. Now, we can get into this later potentially, but if you want to buy this, you'll probably find it being stocked by all the, like, you know, the resellers and the sites that do stock the Middle Eastern perfumes. In the UK, there's lots of those. Not a problem to pick this up. I can already find this on eBay for like 65 quid. So if you're in the UK, You don't want to fart around. You're happy to pay, you know, pay a little markup. It's quite a big markup, but it's 65 quid for a bottle of this. It's 125 mils. I don't know about the concentration as such, but this brand is known for, you know, higher concentrations. I think it's one of them ones. Yeah, I don't see any percentages, or it doesn't claim to be EDP parfum or any of that stuff. Doesn't really matter though, you know, we're going to just judge it on how strong it is for what it is. But anyway, I ordered from Saudi Arabia. So guys, if you're able to order from Saudi Arabia direct from Assaf, I would highly recommend you do that if you like the sound of this. And you can't pay by PayPal and stuff. You have to pay by credit card, debit card. So there's if you're a bit funny about that, and you're not, you want to keep things sort of like, you don't want to buy from overseas and things. I understand that, but if you're willing to go, stick your neck out and just buy it from overseas, no problems, ordering for myself. They've actually got an offer on their fragrances. Get this. Their offer on their fragrances is buy two, get one free. So I've obviously got 3 of these. All of these. I didn't get any other, any of their other things. I got 3 of these. I had some interest. People, basically one of my spare bottles is already posted off to someone who wanted, who's happy to pick it up off me. And the price was incredible. The price for 3 of these delivered was somewhere around 80 quid. So the bottles, you got 30 quid roughly for the bottles each. Buy 2, get 1 free. Somewhere around 20 quid postage. Damn, that's a bargain, guys. 125 mil. So I got 375 mil of this stuff turning up today. Big heavy box. I wouldn't normally go all the way, but just the value of it and stuff. And I knew that, someone would probably want one of the... In fact, today I've already had people messaging me saying, where can I get... if I'd have bought 10 of these, I probably could have sold them on by now. But we didn't, we didn't want to get the customs charges and stuff. Keeping it, to 3 was sensible. They're huge bottles. I'm going to open it up and show you the bottle. Absolutely giant sort of thing. Check this out. Here it is. And it's got this huge cap. Huge glass bottle. This is hefty. There it is. And then it almost looks kind of like a drink bottle or something, or just really big deodorant. This bottle is really something. But this is the brand. This is their branding. This is the Middle Eastern thing. People like to spray a lot and stuff. But this is the bottle. Not really much to say about that apart from it's huge, it's heavy, it's got a massive cap, it's not magnetic, but for the price of this is, like I said, if you break this down per bottle, somewhere around 30 quid. It's 125 mil. It's spectacular value potentially for what you get. This is budget. This is a budget fragrance. And yeah, there you go. There's the bottle. Sprayer doesn't look to be spectacular, but it's actually a good sprayer. I'm going to spray it now. Give you my, I'll try and give you what I get from the scent as much as I can. I already know from watching all the other people reviewing this and stuff that they're not picking up what I'm picking, or they haven't got the points of comparison. They haven't got the sort of the experience with Aventus to really break this down as it should be, because they're only comparing it to clones and absolute Aventus, and there's a bit more going on here in my mind. So anyway, I'm wearing it today. We'll give it a spray. I really like the sprayer. I don't care that it doesn't look super luxury and expensive, because with the sprayer, the most important thing is how it sprays. The pressurized ones kind of piss me off, to be honest. A lot of the time they just give this mist that's just way too fine and stuff. So anyway, let's give it a spray. Let's turn this fan off. I've got my fan on because it's heat wave kind of thing in the UK. So yeah, let's give it a spray. There it is. Woo! And off the top, guys, there you go. There's an Aventus opening for you. It's there. It's pure Aventus. If you smelled Aventus, let's do another spray. You're getting this really kind of sharp, tangy hit of fruits off the top. It's delicious. It's mouth-watering. It's a little bit sharper even than most Aventus, because I think because of the grapefruit note, it's getting a little bit more acidic. It's not so much of a overt pineapple, but it is a really juicy, fruity blast of citrus that absolutely resembles Aventus. And we're not talking clones, we're talking real, true Aventus. This is already, you know, and anyone who's smelt, you know, their share of Aventus, or if you've enjoyed Mystery for him because you feel that it's got that like Aventus quality, this has that Aventus quality all day long. That Aventus quality that we love is really a result of Jean-Christophe's blending and expertise. It's nothing else. It's not a brand, or, you know, it's so obvious that when he puts together something that smells like Aventus, it absolutely destroys the other clones on the market. It's almost embarrassing, to be honest, guys, like how much better this smells, how much better blended. It doesn't have any harshness per se. It's just really kind of pleasing, fruity, delicious. Now, where this gets a little bit different to Aventus, there is this sort of like warm spiciness that you pick up in the middle. Not surprising, because that's you know, that's in the notes, and that's also what you got in Absolute Aventus. You got this sort of spiciness to go along with it. Now here, I don't get quite such a heavy blackcurrant as Absolute Aventus, but I definitely get a blackcurrant. I definitely get this tart sort of tanginess to go along with the citrus, and the warmth that you get from the spices. So we get a little bit of a blackcurrant. Basically, what it smells like off the top, it smells something like the batches smell. And I said this about Mystery, but this one, I'm going to say even more so. It smells something like the batches of Aventus smell from, you know, 2014 to 2018 kind of time frame. The opening smells something like that. But it smells like a batch that had a lot of blackcurrant in it. You know, a more like tangy, fruity batch. It doesn't smell one of the batches that was just, you know, very pineapple-y forward or very creamy with the sort of pineapple. This smells like one of the sort of fruitier batches, if you will. And I love that. I love that. I love how this smells. This is super appealing. It's kind of like very, very like strong off the skin as well. It's like, you know, I've only sprayed a tiny bit out of the bottle and I can kind of pick it up. It's projecting. It's got some real strength to it. Very, very impressive. Because we know that, you know, with the Lyral reformulation and stuff, I feel that this is probably, and I'm not a performance monger. If you've seen, guys, you've seen my other videos, I'm not someone who really loves beast mode fragrances. To be honest, if you're watching this and you're one of those people that's, what's the performance? I need to know the performance, guys. Your tastes aren't going to be aligned with mine, because I actually find that kind of discourse around fragrances, the performance, the beast mode thing, I find that to be quite cringe. Dude, we're talking about fragrance. I'm talking about how it smells more than anything. The performance obviously is a component of the product, and you know, but if you're going for fragrances that purely fill rooms and stuff, I feel like you're probably going to leave the wrong impression a lot of the time. Now, this is obviously personal and stuff, but there's something to be said for having a fragrance that doesn't, you know, and if you're only buying fragrances that are quote unquote beast mode and they're also cheap, what does that say about you, really, guys? What does that say about you if that's your criteria for a fragrance? Because in theory, we're buying fragrances that make us smell nice and exude a sort of sophistication and class. And if you're one of these people that's beast mode, filling rooms, and you know, and you want your fragrance to be cheap, which normally is a combination to give you something that's normally very synthetic smelling, I don't think that's a good look for a fragrance user. I think there's a lot of kind of brilliant fragrances outside of that, which are more subtle, which are more discreet, which are more intimate, that have a more natural quality. That's more what I'm looking at on the market. You can see my other reviews. You know, the Jean-Christophe style is typically not overly bombastic. He doesn't have that many fragrances in his oeuvre, which are like screamers. That's not his style. And I love that about, you know, the stuff he makes. I just like that he blends very well with the sort of, you know, how he associates ingredients. The blending is smooth. The quality, you know, of the sort of oils, obviously with IFF, it's top notch. This smells super, super good, whilst being quite strong. it's definitely on the upper end of what I kind of look for in strength. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, is this going to be like strong enough, guys? It's as strong as any Aventus, basically, as any Aventus can be. Without Lyra, without birch tar. This is potent, guys. Like I when I wore it earlier, we did the sort of full on neck, arms and stuff. I stepped out the house in the warm weather, and I could notice that there was a considerable scent bubble around me with this. So guys, if you are one of those people that look at performance before you look at the scent, which you really shouldn't, but if you really demand performance at all costs for some reason, I think this is gonna hit the spot for you, because it is strong. It's what I would classify as moderate to strong. So if you want an Aventus-like scent that's strong, it's probably stronger than Absolute Aventus. I don't have that here as a comparison point, but it's probably leans stronger than Absolute Aventus. It probably leans stronger than like a new batch of Aventus. To be honest, I haven't smelled all the stuff that's out there now, from Creed, but I can imagine that this would have them beat on performance, and it probably has most of them beat on smell as well. Kind of like a lot of people said Mystery smells better than the newest Aventus does. This also smells better than the new Aventus. Does it smell better than Absolute Aventus? I actually think, for my tastes, it does. I actually think this is better than Absolute Aventus. That might be absolutely, for people that look at brands and think Creed, and that might be shocking. They might not, people might not be willing to kind of believe that. But if you know that Jean-Christophe's the guy, basically with the Aventus DNA, that's his thing. It's hardly surprising to my nose that this smells every bit as good as Creed's Absolute Aventus, probably even better. I think the main reason why this is so appealing, before we get into the scent a bit more, is because it's fresher. It leans fresher than Absolute Aventus. It has a brightness, a freshness, which I feel Absolute Aventus, it starts with a very juicy blackcurrant, but it kind of quickly goes into more of the kind of woody, resinous sort of aspect, and it also gets quite cinnamony in the dry down. That's the thing I remembered about Absolute Aventus. It had beautiful blackcurrant opening, and then it gets more and more kind of cinnamony in the dry down. Not in a bad way, but I just remember getting quite a bit of cinnamon in Absolute Aventus in the dry down. Now this one, there is cinnamon in the notes, but it doesn't smell excessively cinnamony to me. I feel like the cinnamon and the spices in here are really well blended into the overall Aventus DNA. That's where the magic is here, guys. What's happening here as it settles down, it's got that sort of pineapple-y effect. It's not like a screaming pineapple, but it's a really you can pick up that fruity Aventus pineapple. It's it's in there in the core. It smells really good. Never loses that sort of tanginess. There's a little bit of sweetness from the spices, but not too much. It doesn't lean sweet to my nose. It leads fresh. It leads uplifting. Ultra versatile. And then what happens with the dry down in here? I feel like the dry down is much closer to what you got in Aventus than what we got in Mystery for him, basically. This is much more of the smoky, woody dry down than Mystery for him is. And part of that, obviously, we've got the sort of patchouli. The way that base is being blended in here, and the way the sort of spices also play into that, that's the real master sort of stroke here, I think. Because basically what you're getting this sort of warmth from the woods, which is really coming through from the warm spices. So the warm spices are warming up the woods, but how that smells is that actually has that smoky effect that you got, in Aventus, basically. I'm not saying this smells like vintage Aventus, because I don't think it does, but I think it has a really pleasing smoky effect to the woods. It has a really nice smoky effect while also being very clean. So it doesn't smell like one of those old Aventus bottles that's spoiled and gone rotten. It has a smoky woods, which is still very clean and sort of pleasing. Brilliant work. I love how it smells. As someone who's wore Aventus to death, I could sure as hell rock this one. I think this one deserves a lot of praise. I think it's going to get increasing amount of praise. People get their noses on it. This is not going to be like Mystery for Him, and it's going to take ages because of the availability. This is going to be much easier to get hold of. It's even cheap. It's like price wise, it's considerably less if we take it at its, price in Saudi Arabia. Like I said, somewhere around 30 quid for one of these, 125 mils. It's not watered down. It's, if anything, it's very, very strong. I'm super impressed. I'm super impressed. The way it smells to me is just like the good Aventus smelled, after the birch tar was taken out. Smells very, very close to that. Automatically better than all the clones, and kind of to my taste, also more pleasing than Mystery for Him. Because Mystery for Him, I think I've said about this before, I had to make my own batch of Mystery for Him. I had to blend it with some, some old school Aventus just to get the balance that I like, a bit more, a bit less sweet. Because the sweetness in that, was quite prominent in the dry down. If you added, some sort of older Aventus into it, I found that it brought the sweetness down quite a bit. You still got that really amazing pineapple, but you got a bit more woodiness to it. That was the sweet spot for me. This one already hits the sweet spot from the bat. The only caveat is it does have those warm spices. It brings spices to the table of Aventus. And obviously the concept for the scent, the desert, the warm spices in the desert, I get that. It is conceptually, it does line up. But I do think obviously there's some absolute Aventus sort of inspiration here. But it's Jean-Christophe's own version. And I actually, like I said, I prefer this to the smell of the Creed. I sure as hell prefer the price of it. Put it like that. And it's not that I don't want to but it's just supporting Creed and stuff. I would have liked it if Creed had continued to work with Jean-Christophe and other perfumers from that lineage, rather than just, go off and do this, change the scents by themselves. I think, like I said, Alberto seemed to be involved in some of the later Creed scents for a while. He's one of the, and it's very sort of, we don't really know the noses on some of them. Like I said, Cologne, Aventus Cologne seemed to be, Alberto Marias seemed to be the nose there. But Absolute Aventus, we're not really sure. It's a question mark who did that. The only thing I know is 100% Jean-Christophe didn't do it. So if you see any reviews out there saying Jean-Christophe made Absolute Aventus and now he's made this, discard that because that's bad information. He didn't create Absolute Aventus. He didn't create Aventus Cologne. He only created the OG Aventus in 2010. So we're getting something here from its original creator again, just like Mystery for Him. And it needs to be pointed out repeatedly because there's a reason why this smells as good as it does. It's a step above other clones. The people that are comparing it to the clones and not, giving you that sort of comparison to the quality of the earlier Aventus, you're missing a trick, guys, because this is very comparable to some really prime Aventus. It does have more of a warm spiciness to it than Aventus did, but I feel the way, like I said, the way that plays with the woods, warms up the woods, makes them smell a bit more smoky. The way that works is gorgeous, and it's really kind of projecting. I feel like this is going to be compliments, quote unquote. If you want compliments, I feel like this is going to be absolute killer. Unfortunately, I didn't get compliments today. I only went out once to the supermarket wearing it. I tried to go close to people so they'd smell it. I didn't get complimented, so sorry. I can't give you an amazing story about a compliment I got, but that's the first time I've ever worn it. So maybe we'll get compliments. But I do feel like the DNA, the juiciness of it, the addictive fruitiness that we got from Aventus, that's here, and it does project. And I feel that this is going to make waves. When people wear it, there's going to be stories of compliments and stuff. It's one of those ones basically. It's gonna be really pleasing to people around you, and it's definitely going to be smelt by them as well. Just that I just feel, the scent bubble, the longevity doesn't seem to be absolutely crazy. I don't feel like, some of the reviews said beast mode 12 hours, 24 hours. I don't know about that, but I do know that for the initial phase and probably up at least 5 or 6 hours in, if you spray quite a bit of it, which you can because it's so affordable, you're going to get serious scent bubble projection here. To the extent where it might even be a bit much for me. I might have to tone down my sprays because I do find the stronger perfumes too much, can upset me, give me headaches. I'm a bit sensitive like that. I don't necessarily want to drown myself in perfume that's of that strength. But this doesn't smell upsetting in terms of how it's blended. It doesn't have synthetic tones like so many of the Aventus clones. This is in a whole other ballpark, guys. Is that the Jean-Christophe fanboy in me? It probably is. But anyone who's out there who likes their Aventus, who knows their Aventus, they smell Aventus, they smell Mystery for Him, and they recognise there was a, quality-wise, there was a similarity. They're gonna, you can easily buy this, like blind buy this, and you're gonna pick up the same kind of quality here. The true Aventus DNA, as I would describe it. It's every bit as good as the original, the original juice, with the caveat that it doesn't have, the same material, the Lyral, the Helvetilide, the musk, the captive musk. It doesn't have those aspects of Aventus, which is part of the sort of, the bells and whistles of it. But in terms of a new blend, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I love this sort of like, I wouldn't call it bubblegummy, but it has this kind of warm sweetness that comes in with the fruits, which works really, really well. It's a tried and tested DNA. It's kind of nothing new per se that I've not smelt before, because, we smelt lots of Aventus. But damn, I'll be damned if this isn't the best value version so far. It doesn't have to, be kind of that cheap to beat out, like, Creed, for example. But, even with the myth of, like, the price of the myth has actually crept up a little bit. And it's still great value. It's still worth it. Don't get me wrong. But this coming in at the price that it's at, whew, dude, I feel like when the word gets around that this is shit hot. This is not just an Aventus clone. This is actually an Aventus flanker. It's more like an Aventus flanker, which is what I said about Mystery for Him. This is going to fly for the price that it's available for. So hats off to Assaf for, like, persuading Jean-Christophe or whatever they did to get him to give them a version of Aventus for their own market. This is not just going to be for the Saudi market. This is going to launch, I feel this will launch them more and more into sort of the global stage. I think it's that good. It's just crazy. It's just crazy how much value is here for the money. I almost, when I saw that he made it and then I saw how much it cost, I almost couldn't believe it. I thought there's got to be some sort of, when I received it, I thought there's got to be some sort of catch here. This has got to have some lower quality, kind of juice, or there's got to be some sort of catch to this. This can't just be another literally Aventus flanker for, like, half the price of Myth, if less. Like, it's less really. It's like, my 375ml of this stuff for 80 quid, it's just unthinkable, guys. That is true kind of clone pricing. But what you're getting here is not a clone. It's a beautiful scent. It is brilliant in the summer. It's described as a summer scent. They market this as a summer scent. Definitely works in the summer. It's definitely fresher than Absolute Aventus. It does have the spices and the blackcurrant, but the proportions are a little bit different. The base is definitely better. It definitely smells much more like an actual Aventus than the base of Absolute. Absolute, like I said, bit too much cinnamon going on for me. It was a nice cinnamon, but I don't really want an overdose of cinnamon. I like my fruits. This one, the pineapple-iness lingers around far more than it does in Absolute Aventus. Absolute Aventus had a little touch of pineapple, I felt, but it didn't really persist. With this one, the pineapple-iness here is really like, it carries. Like, it's all the way through. When you catch this, when you kind of put your nose to it, you think, yeah, there's pineapple. There's a pineapple smell. That's a pineapple smell, just like Aventus is a pineapple smell. But then the bells and whistles around it, the other fruits, the accompanying notes. There's a pineapple smell with other fruits around it. Doesn't have the floral notes that we get from Aventus in the listing. I don't really pick up florals here, but I'm sure there's something in there to sort of balance it. Obviously, ambroxan, it's not a note, but it's 100% got plenty of unboxing in it. If you guys know Jean-Christophe's style, he's Mr. Unboxing, as he says. He's always going to use unboxing. Aventus is a load of unboxing. Like, you know, the formula for Aventus includes massive amounts of unboxing. You know, it's unboxing, it's bergamot, and then it's the other stuff, the musk, you know, they're the top ingredients in Aventus. This one clearly has plenty of ambroxan as well, but it's very, very well dosed to where it doesn't smell excessive. Very well balanced with the, you know, it's him all day basically. So Jean-Christophe, you got another banger here, dude. It's not surprising, but yeah, big ups to Assaf for releasing this scent. This come out of nowhere. Like I said, I didn't expect to see like an Aventus inspiration anytime soon. To be honest, I thought we'd get another myth one first before anything else, and keep your eye out for that. We might have another myth one sometime in the future, sometime soon, hopefully. But it's got some competition, whatever it's going to be, because this is killer. This is absolutely killer, guys. So, you know, the guys sitting on their you know, hundreds of bottles of 2016 Aventus, their collections are just getting sort of more and more worthless when things like this hit the market, because these things absolutely take us back to that time, but potentially smell even better because the juice is fresh. You know, Jean-Christophe's evolved as a perfumer quite a bit. He's got more tricks up his sleeve. This is brilliant. This is a brilliant smell. This is a great take on Aventus. Like I said, the differences to Aventus are that, you know, the citrus is not quite as sort of big at the top. Like, certainly with Mystery for him, we got bigger citrus, bigger pineapple. This one doesn't have the huge pineapple, but it does have really juicy kind of fruits in it. And that pineapple, the way that pineapple kind of like lingers in the middle section, it is a middle note here. And I do feel like you bury your nose in this and you get like that pineapple is more in the middle of this scent than maybe it even is in Aventus. Because Aventus has the apple, which kind of carries the pineapple. This one doesn't have apple. It just has pineapple in the middle. It does have a bit of an appley vibe, to be honest. Anyway, this captures the good bits of Aventus for me, but adds in a little bit of spice. But the way the spice, like I said, the way the spice accents the woody notes to make them smell a bit warmer, a bit more smoky. That's where the good stuff is here. I think that's kind of all I can pretty much say about this for now, to be honest. Because like I said, I just got this today, first wearing, but I wanted to, like, you know, sound the alarm. I've already had a bunch of people messaging me about it, say, you know, where can I get this? You know, it's always the Aventus, isn't it, guys? It's always the Aventus stuff. It's like, can we move on, please? Can we move on from Aventus, guys? We've had Aventus for 15 years. Can we get excited about some other scents, please? But anyway, I'm only joking. But anyway, this is very good. This is amazing value. You know, this takes us right back to prime Aventus years. Do I need all of this juice? Am I going to use it? I guess, yeah, I'm going to start to wear this. See how I get on with it. To be honest, I might not need the second. I got the 3 bottles. Someone else had one. I might even get rid of the... If I find I'm not going to want 250 mils of this, I might even sell the other bottle at some point. I can certainly do the decants if people want to test it out before they blind buy it. But it is easy to blind buy. It's dead easy to blind buy. Like I said, if you're a bit adventurous and you don't mind, sort of just buy it from Saudi Arabia. Buy it direct from the company. You know, don't be paying the reseller price. Buy yourself 3 bottles. Find a friend who likes Aventus, and you know, sell them a bottle. Sell 2. You know, basically buy yourself 3 bottles. I vouch for the company. They're very, very good to order from. I had to contact their customer service to try and get some tracking, just so I had a vague idea of where it was going to be, because it didn't automatically kind of email me and stuff, and they responded, you know, excellently. My experience with the Saudi brands has so far been very, very good. I had the video last year about a brand called Laverne, who had a scent with Jean-Christophe, and just like them, I praised them for being really good customer service, brilliant packaging. You know, they use the same shipping company, I think Aramex, which sort of specialise in packages out of the Middle East. The experience of ordering from them was really, really good. So they've got my, you know, they've got my sort of seal approval. If anyone watches this and they're a bit funny about doing that, Obviously, you can just go buy it on eBay, go buy it from a reseller. But, you know, if you really want to get some amazing value here, go buy yourself 3 bottles, I guess. I think the price might have crept up very, very slightly because I think this is flying off the shelf at the moment. But, you know, absolutely, guys, you know, blind buy this. You know, don't be worried. If you like Aventus, it's as easy as just blind buy this. Smells fruity as heck. Smells brilliant. I'm loving the smell. I was quite shocked at the performance when, like I said, when I went out, and it was just like, wow, this is really this is a really heavy scent bubble it made. Not in a bad way, but it gave me what I felt was strong projection, which I don't always get with the kind of scents that I like, the kind of scents I wear. They don't always have that level of like projection. So this is a beast, guys. Like, it's not necessarily going to last 12 hours, but it is going to last, you know, a good 5-6 with good projection if you spray a good amount, which to me is on the strong side of a fragrance. And if you're looking for the 12 hours, dude, it's like, why do we need a scent that lasts 12 hours? And like, you know, why, guys? Can we not afford to just reapply halfway through the day? It's just like the 12-hour thing. I feel it gets kind of the beast mode, 12 hour, 24 hour, 48 hour like performance requirements. Guys, what are we doing? Like, we should be like, in my mind, I'm after beautiful fragrances. I don't need that insane level of performance on all fragrances. I feel that takes the fun away. It restricts the sort of scents that we can kind of, you know, the beauty of the scents that we can pick up, because of many of the beautiful scents that we're picking up. Here's one, the Palais Royal, Jean-Christophe Hérault. Dude, if we were only picking up beast mode scents, we wouldn't be smelling like this as well, because this is god tier. So if you want the god tier scents, you need to drop the beast mode requirement, guys. That's just my take. You know, you don't have to listen to me, but I just feel like the beast mode requirement, you're missing out on 75% of the best scents on the market, just because you won't buy them because they don't have beast mode 72-hour performance sort of thing. I know, it's just, to me, like, I'm gonna increasingly rant about this, because I feel the way the market has gone with the beast mode stuff, it's kind of like there's too many things out there that give you a headache now. Part of it is because people's sense of smell, I think, is a little bit diminished. And it's kind of like you spray too much of these ultra strong perfumes, and you'll find that your sense of smell does actually decrease because of it. Aventus was very famous for that, actually. People always complain about going nose blind to Aventus, and I think part of that was because they just sprayed too much and used it too often. There was a thing with Aventus where the reformulations, I don't think, were quite as well balanced as the vintage. The vintage had the birch, which kind of like, you know, you could detect it for longer because that sort of fixative like brought the scent together and you could pick it up. But when they went more into the sort of ISOE, you know, and they took the birch out, I found the Aventus got very sort of like nose blind inducing. So this is great. This doesn't have nose blind sort of qualities, just to add that at the end of the review. Doesn't make you nose blind. Mystery for Him, I found, didn't make you very nose blind either. That's only because Jean-Christophe's a brilliant perfumer, knows how to create a scent that doesn't make you nose blind, and Creed's reformulations weren't by him, and they didn't really know, you know, how to address that issue, how to balance it in a way where you would not get nose blind, basically. So you've got a brilliant version of Aventus here that you won't get nose blind to. You're just going to smell a really beautiful fruity blend. It's somewhere in between Absolute Aventus and Aventus in how it smells. It's much fresher than Absolute Aventus to my nose. Has a better pineapple note, has a better base. Absolute Aventus, game over, I guess. Like, I never bought it anyway, but, you know, I don't see any reason why anyone would buy Absolute Aventus now with this on the market. Like, this to me is superior. It's much closer to the actual Aventus than Absolute Aventus. So you got something that's somewhere in between Aventus and Absolute Aventus. So any of the guys that's like, you know, talking about this and telling you that it's basically almost spot on for Absolute Aventus, that's only because they've not really smelled very much Aventus in their time. They don't know that this smells very, very close with the kind of juicy fruits to how the Aventus did smell, you know, after the birch was taken out, somewhere around 2014 to 2016. The batch nerds out there will know that the 2014 batches got really, really blackcurranty. There was quite a lot of batches there that had a huge like blackcurrant sort of vibe. So that's kind of where you're going with this, without the vanilla, and then with the added, like, you know, spices, the cinnamon and the cardamom. But the way they're balanced with the scent, I feel works really, really well. I felt they worked really, really well with Absolute Aventus. I felt it was a very good touch, but I feel like it's an even better touch here, just because Jean-Christophe's done it, and he's better than, you know, whoever blended Absolute Aventus. Jean-Christophe is another level of perfumer above them. Sorry, Creed. So yeah, big props to Assaf, Jean-Christophe, coming out with this. I do hope it's a big success. I just want to put my, you know, early on, put my bit out into the sort of, you know, the sort of sphere, the sort of, you know, sphere reviews. You got something a bit more in depth if you can be bothered to watch this. Like I said, I'm not trying to be an influencer and stuff, so I can kind of care less how many people watch the video. But, you know, there will be people who, you know, might want to know a bit more than the 50-second reviews and stuff. So I think that's going to be about it. That's all I got for you guys. Obviously, any more questions, you can hit me up. But, you know, I feel like I've covered it reasonably. Only other thing I'm going to say at the end of the video, bit of a side note, but rest in peace to Olivier Creed. Obviously, Olivier Creed passed on lately, just recently. He's truly the grandfather of Aventus to some respects. So you guys who enjoy Aventus, you know, it's sad that he passed on. He did live to quite an old age, I believe. So yeah, rest in peace to Olivier Creed, because he was the one, you know, who had the original idea for Aventus. He bought that musk. You know, the story goes he brought the musk to Aventus, to Jean-Christophe. He bought the musk and said he wanted this musk to be part of a scent, and then it basically started from there. And that musk is, you know, if you like Aventus, you'll know that musk is the sort of, you know, it's like the icing on the cake of a brilliant scent. And obviously they allowed Jean-Christophe the creative freedom to just make that scent that he probably wouldn't have otherwise made, because I think the story goes he was given freedom to just basically, as long as it had the musk in it. And I think the story goes it started with muscat and broxin, and then they started to add in, you know, the darker, woodier notes, and then later in the process, the fruits were more sort of added in to give it more of a sort of a fun vibe. I think that's how he kind of described its sort of development. Giving him the freedom to create that early in his career, and we're still living with that DNA now, and people are still absolutely hooked on it. I'm not quite as sort of hooked on it as some of the people out there, but I do respect it. I wore it today. I wore this one today, and I was loving it. Gave me that some nostalgia for the older Aventus, specifically the 2015, 2016 type Aventus. It gave me that nostalgia, and I did think as I was wearing it, okay, this is more like it. This is much more like, especially the dry, the later phase. This is much more like Aventus than Mystery for him, with the caveat that the pineapple's not quite as, it's not quite such a big pineapple. It's more of that kind of fruity, that tangy fruity vibe. And to be honest, that's the bit of Aventus. Like I said, I went all in for the appley batches. This is more up my street in terms of the overall scent profile. So I absolutely love the scent. I can wholeheartedly recommend anyone who likes Aventus to go out and blind buy this. You're not going to be disappointed. The guys who got their noses on lots of clones and stuff, maybe their sort of take on it is going to be a bit different. To be honest, I stopped smelling the clones years ago. None of them were very good. None of them smelled as sort of natural and well blended, and the quality was never quite there. They always got something fundamentally wrong that didn't give them that sort of addictive fruity quality that the OG had. If you smell Mystery, you'll know Mystery actually has that because Jean-Christophe did it, and this also has that because Jean-Christophe did it. So there you go. There's your piece on Assaf Stripe Black. We're probably going to have something coming up later in the year. The aromatics line is going to go into production soon. The new stuff. There's some Jean-Christophe stuff there. We're always looking out, for new things that he's doing or new perfumes. I actually had this coffee perfume I ordered from China a few weeks back. I might do a video on that. That's more niche, more unusual. But yeah, we're loving the scents in the summer at the moment. We've got the heat wave in the UK. I've been wearing, what have I been wearing? Millesime Imperial, my all-time favourite. We've been rocking that one. But really, guys, this one, This one's been my star of the year so far, the Palais Royale. I've been wearing this, and I've also come up with like a layer. I've used the Palais Royale as the sort of the base layer, and Dior Homme Cologne as sort of over the top to give it even more like zestiness. That combination, guys, was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, not all layers work well. That particular layer worked really well. Like, I just couldn't believe my nose when I was like smelling how those two scents interacted. It gave me this obviously comes out more in the later dry down. It has a fairly sort of stronger dry down than the Dior Homme Cologne, but it just gave it a little bit more zest. And this is already pretty zesty. This is already a very zesty green tea fragrance. One of Jean-Christophe's finest works in the sort of fresh style, I would say. If you haven't checked this one out, guys, I just have to toot its horn because I think it's a spectacular fragrance. It's expensive. It's not beast mode. But if you're watching and you think, oh, I would love a fragrance that just smells as good as, you know, that can smell really, really good, and you like tea as a note, you like tea notes, and you also don't mind a jasmine, because there is quite a big jasmine here. If you're watching this and you like Aventus, you definitely like jasmine, because the jasmine is, you know, pretty prominent in Aventus. So, you know, this is your like green tea version of Aventus. Put it like that. Let's put it like that. Absolutely glorious. Refreshing as hell in the hot weather. That's why I was pulling this one out. So, yeah, just to toot the Palais Royale, you know, hype that one up again, because I love that. This one's great. It's not got that it's not as refreshing as those scents, but it definitely works well in the summer. Definitely has the projection that you need. It has the fruitiness that you need. You know, it's basically an Aventus flanker done to perfection. So there's your review on Strike Black. Hit me up in the comments. Any comments? Any questions? You know, happy to talk about it. You know, I go on a while on these videos, but you know, it's just to give you something more in depth, because all you can otherwise find is normally 50-second stuff, you know, on the scents from people who are trying to, you know, they're trying to play the market, play the field with their content. And I'm not hating on that, but I'm just saying that's not me. I could kind of care less. I'm not on here to build a, you know, a brand and work with brands and be an influencer. I'm not into that. I'm just an enthusiast, and I'm going to give you my honest take on this stuff. And I genuinely believe this is a brilliant one. So beyond brilliant, considering the price, guys. This could be one of the best value fragrances ever brought to market, considering how expensive Aventus was or is, and then relative to how close this one smells. So there you go. And I think Absolute Aventus might even be more at retail, because you only get the little bottle size of that one. Anyway, Strike Black, Jean-Christophe Hérault. He's striking the Saudi market, as he put it. He wants to strike the Saudi market. I think he's going to strike more than the Saudi market with this when the word gets out. He's going to strike the global market, guys. Very cheeky in a way, because they never mention Aventus or pineapple in the marketing, but you know, you get your nose on this, it's unmistakably Aventus DNA. It's his DNA, so he can do what he wants. But yeah, Strike Black, and we're going to see you on the next one.